Hello and welcome to Founders Amplified, where we spotlight underrepresented founders who are driving innovation and impact across various industries and sectors across the globe. I'm your host, Narayan Kulkarni, and I'm excited to be here with you today. Today's guest is Lena Alabbasi. Lena Alabbasi is the founder of Divergent. Originally from Baghdad, Iraq, and now based in Chicago, Illinois, Lena identifies as Muslim, Arab, female with autism. She holds a bachelor's in molecular genetics from UT Anderson and a master's in biomedical engineering from Rice U. She founded Divergent to create tools for the neurodivergent community that empower rather than erase their identities. They are currently building Spectrum Scan, a mobile application that helps you understand how the qualities of sound and light around you affects your health and well-being. So, now that you know a little bit about Lena, let's dive in to the conversation. Welcome to Founders Amplified, Lena. It's great to have you with us. How are you doing today?
Good. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me on this episode.
You're most welcome, Lena. And again, thanks for joining us. So I want to kick things off and learn a little bit more about your journey. So could you tell me more about what led you to become a founder, and if there are any particular moments or experiences that really sparked that decision?
Yeah. So I've always been in love with the idea of creating. I didn't want to be someone who gets forgotten about after two generations. I know that like in our lifespan, that's technically what happens. I've always wanted to leave behind some sort of a creation that remains an impact. And I think a lot of us, dream about the idea of doing that. Now, for me, I was a first generation immigrant. And what many might kind of gather from that is that when you come as an immigrant, your first focus is financial stability and wanting to set your roots somewhere so that you feel steady and stable and being able to build a life. So, in that context, entrepreneurship was something that is a bit far fetched because it involves a lot of risk. It involves not, having a steady paycheck. Um, so for most of my life, I had my focus on just graduating, getting a job, and getting that financial stability. What happened is that once I reached that point, that nagging voice inside of me of I could do more and I need to do more kind of started coming up to the surface again. So I started to figure out or start searching for what avenues I can put that creative thinking towards. And I was instantly drawn to entrepreneurship when I started exploring different career paths, because that's one area that you're not just creating one thing, but you're creating every step of your path, not just an end product. So if I were to kind of pinpoint a moment in time, I would say it was once I finally was able to get that financial stability, being able to pay my own bills and having, that mental clarity to explore more.
Wow, well said. Thanks for sharing. I can definitely resonate with the perspective. So, I mean, I was very young when my parents immigrated to the U.S., and so like I have like experienced them going through that. And yes, like I do understand it can be a very challenging journey, but yes, to your point, like when there is financial stability, I definitely saw this with like my experience of living with my parents. Yes, like that can lead to other things and like other avenues, which can then lead to like creative or different ventures. But I'd love to like
Yeah.
dive a little bit more deeper into the point about identity. So you've talked about your story as an
Mhm.
immigrant. I'd love to know a little bit more about how that, or maybe other identities that you have, how does that or other parts of your story more broadly, how do
Yeah.
those give you a unique angle into what you're doing with Divergent, or just more broadly as a founder?
Yeah. I think For me personally, a part of my identity that links to Divergent is being firsthand impacted by the problem that I'm trying to solve. So what we're doing is trying to come up with a tool that helps individuals with sensory sensitivity, whether that's linked to autism, ADHD, or other causes, uh, a way to navigate the world more comfortably by understanding how the sensory profile in their environment, whether that's light or sound, affects their health, and what are some tools that they can use, maybe endorsed by others in the community, that would help prevent sensory overstimulation. So this is something that I've struggled with all my life. I didn't understand it. I was diagnosed late at the age of 27. And, that was a big moment of realization for me to where everything started to make sense. And that was wonderful. It was so liberating. And the next step was to try to figure out what all can I do about it. Now, surprisingly, despite there being so many people out there with a story similar to mine, there's a very limited number of tools available, and there's nothing that's, you know, tailored to individuals with sensory sensitivity. Um, so I think that's the part that I would say links the most to Divergent because, my purpose, my reason comes from my own experience, and that's kind of the fuel that keeps pushing me forward.
Wow, thanks for sharing. I first of all admire and thank you for um, being a founder and like wanting to make a positive impact to what you do, but also in creating a tool where it sounds like there are very tools that exist. And I'd like to learn a little bit
Yeah.
more about this point. So, can you tell me more about among the tools that exist, what is
Mhm.
unique about what you're doing that might make other people say, "Oh, that's a unique approach that I've never thought of," or maybe
Mhm.
more broadly in the entrepreneurial landscape? What's unique
Mhm.
about the work that you're doing and the approach you're taking?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I think some very common theme in this field of building tools for the neurodivergent population is that tools are being built from neurotypical perspective. I think very well intending people, who have a loved one or a family member who experiences some symptoms of neurodivergence. Um, they want to develop something that will help them, but they're developing it from their perspective. And that's not to, any fault of their own. We all see the world, through the lens of our own experiences. Um, but what that tends to happen is that it doesn't quite fit the solutions that are created. So when you look at the autism space, a lot of the tools are created to help the individual learn social skills and assimilate to their outside world. And that also um, applies to treatments that are very wide common, like ABA. It has, the goal of helping you assimilate. And yes, it teaches you a lot of good skills that you need to thrive in a world that is built for neurotypical folks. What's unique about Divergent is that we're flipping that narrative. And instead of saying, how can we make this individual act like a neurotypical person? Instead, we're saying, what are some strengths that we can empower? And what are some struggles that we can support without changing their identity, without making them feel like there's something wrong with them that needs to be fixed, but instead how can we build towards a world that's more accommodating to them so that, we don't need to live on the edge of life being excluded in every context.
Wow, thanks so much for sharing. I appreciate the perspective that you're taking in solving this problem and making and providing incredible tools. And so we talked about spectrum scan in the intro. I would love
Yeah.
to know more about what are the specific tools or features of Spectrum Scan that allow you to bring that perspective into what you're doing, and how has your audience responded to or received that?
Yeah. So the response that we've gotten so far has been very positive. People are very excited to finally be heard and finally have something that's developed from the individual's perspective. I think sensor sensitivity is something that is brushed over a lot. In fact, we're just starting to understand the link between that and, things like having emotional meltdowns, that these aren't necessarily, individuals acting up. They're just, their brain is overwhelmed by the amount of input that's outside in the world. So we've had a very positive response so far. People are excited. I think we're kind of it's our job now to deliver on all the promises that we've told them, because they're excited, they're looking forward to this, and we have to work really hard to make sure that we do deliver on these promises that we've made. And sometimes, when the technical difficulties come into play, especially with integrating with other platforms, that can be a challenge. We're hoping to develop this for both Android and Apple, or iOS. And with iOS, there's a lot of challenges in terms of integrating with the hardware and having access to the features that we need to provide value to customers. So that's kind of the top challenge that we're facing right now in terms of integrating with another platform. But the overall, the response that we've gotten has been very positive. And I think slowly but surely we're figuring out how to work around these technical issues and still be able to provide a product that offers the same value that we promised.
Wow, thanks for sharing. It's glad to hear that there's been very positive response to what you're doing with Spectrum Scan. But can you also, if you're able to, talk a little bit more about some of the
Yeah.
the features and ways in
Yes.
which people can better like understand things like how sound and health affect health and well-being, or other
Mhm.
ways in which like some of the features that are unique or really add value to your customers that make them, or your audience that make them interpret or give such feedback?
Yeah, yeah. That was the second part of your question. So thank you for highlighting that. Um, so for what we do is we give the user a zoomed out view of how their day-to-day looks like in terms of the sensory profile. So we break sound to the pitch, the source, and the loudness, which are the three elements that research shows have been have been the main culprits in causing sensory overstimulation related to sound. And for light, we are breaking that down to source, flicker, and intensity. So kind of similar perspective of like, these are the top three uh, annoyances that people find with light. And what that gives you is that you'll be able to associate each element with the way you respond to it and slowly learn what is good for you and what is not. That way you can tailor your environment to what works, whether that's being able to be more productive at work or being able to recharge at home without, lights and sounds bothering you. For a lot of people, that process is just trial and error. It's a vague sensation that they don't quite know how to pinpoint. So, what that does is that it gives it to you in descriptive data so that you can understand what works for you and what doesn't. And you'll be able to take that information and advocate for yourself too. So you'll have a lot better response when you go to your employer and say, "Hey, the light intensity is at this level of lumens, and I need this level. Can we make that adjustment?" that's likely to get a lot better response because not only, it shows that you know exactly what you need, but also gives the person on the receiving end information to work with and being able to know, a way that is measurable, how they can actually deliver on giving you the accommodation that they need. So for now, this is what we're offering. In the future, we're hoping to integrate the your smartwatch along with the app. So using your heart rate variability on the smartwatch, you won't have to do as much of the manual work. The app will be able to associate certain conditions with your heart rate variability and be able to let you know this works for you and this doesn't, and be able to give you recommendations based off of that.
Well, wow, amazing. Thanks for sharing. One thing that really stood out as you were sharing was the ability to like look at stimuli, break them down into
Yeah,
and analyze them in certain ways and create turn those into information that can be used in
yes,
empowering meaningful ways. That's one thing that really stood out, and I appreciate that you shared this. And you also talked
yeah.
about something which is going to be my next question, which were like the smartwatch and aspects of the like your features that you're going to have in the future.
Mhm.
Can you talk a little bit more about the vision for Divergent, for Spectrum Scan? What are you looking to do? It maybe a bit more detail, or if you like have already shared in good detail, what excites you
Yeah.
about those features that are on the horizon and new aspects or ways that you're going to be addressing this problem?
Yeah. So, what I'm really excited about is to be able to empower people to speak for what accommodations they need without feeling shame. For that to be something that, like you said, it's actionable data that we're providing. It's not just a vague sensation. So that will receive better listening ear, is less likely to be dismissed. And as that data builds up, as people continue to use this and advocate for themselves, that will create more social awareness, which I think is the main barrier right now towards movement to build more accommodation. So I'm hoping that in a few years, that social awareness that will build with time and with making that concrete data available, businesses will start to offer sensory sensitivity accommodations. Maybe restaurants will offer families headphones available that, noise canceling headphones that their child can use so that they're able to visit public spaces and be comfortable and not feel like, they have this like laundry list of ways to prepare for every single situation, whether that's taking a flight to go visit family or going out to a restaurant to celebrate a milestone. They'll be able to do that without feeling shame, without feeling like they're an inconvenience. But, just like we have ramps for people who use wheelchairs, we'll be able to have accommodations for sensory sensitivity.
Wow, thanks for sharing. Two things that really stood out were the how you'll simultaneously be with the smartwatch, like data integration, other accommodations that you'll be enabling that provides both individual empowerment, but also
Mhm.
more collective awareness and more, it sounds like zooming out, maybe more structural features. And that leads me to my
Yeah.
next question. So you talked about some of the impacts you might see in like a few years, but let's zoom out like 5, 10 years into the future. Let's also look at broader impact. What are the
Mhm.
broader macro impacts and the longer term impacts that you're seeing that are showing in that future that what you're doing is working?
Yeah. In an ideal world, if everything goes as I envision it, uh, we will normalize conversations about providing accommodations to people. But also, maybe we can code it into the way we design spaces around us to make sure that it's inclusive for everyone, not just, one group of people, but to make sure that we are aware of each other and respect each other's unique needs.
Wow, well said. Amazing. And it sounds like you have like been on quite the journey to envision such a broad future as well as build the amazing thing you're building to enable that. So on that journey as a founder, it's kind of a two-part question. The first part is, can you tell me more about something you've learned more about the community that you're serving that you wish you knew prior to starting? The second thing is, can you tell me more about what you know now as a founder and building a business that you wish you had known prior to starting?
Okay. Um, so I think in terms of what I learned about the community is that everyone in this ecosystem is trying to help you. And they're open to supporting your journey if you come with good intentions and wanting to help others. Whether, you're working on helping people on the autism spectrum or helping people who, are advocating for respecting and helping the environment, whatever your journey is, if you're wanting to do good, everyone in this ecosystem wants to help you and they're open to. It's up to you to make the ask and build those bridges and find how you can support their mission as they're supporting yours. So that's kind of what I learned about the community. And I'm sorry, can you repeat the second part of your question?
The second part of my question was about something you've learned as the in the process of building a business or founding a
Mm.
startup that you know now that you wish you had known prior to starting.
Yeah, I would say the path is unique for each person. And one of the main skills that you have to develop is resourcefulness and being comfortable with what's uncomfortable and not knowing. I know this is something that probably is said in a lot of context, but it really rings true here is that as a founder, your day to day will look completely different. The path isn't charted, it's one that you build. Um, and don't be afraid when you don't know all the answers. And most people don't know all the answers. And even those that you look up to and think are very successful, and you think, oh, they must have it all figured out, chances are they are figuring it out as you speak. They just are better with not letting the anxiety of it get to them, but rather focusing on having a plan and just jumping right in.
Okay. Well said. And are there any particular experiences that you have had which were particularly joyful or challenging that underpin some of those lessons that you shared?
Yeah. Um, Joyful. Um, Hmm. I think what comes to mind when you say the word joyful, I don't know if this answers your question, but uh, early last month, actually, we won a pitch competition. And to me, that was, I would say, the most joyful part of the journey because, you have this idea and you believe in it, but when you're able to see that other people believe in it too, that's a very joyful feeling to know that you may actually be able to leave an impact. Um, Challenging, I don't know if I would describe like a certain moment as challenging. I think that's kind of a culmination of a lot of small moments over time. Every day you're working on something completely different that you did not know anything about before. I've never created, any branding elements before. And for Divergent, I had to learn, how to build a brand, how to manage social media accounts, how to, design the app or design our logo and all these things that I've had zero experience with. And, at first it feels like, oh, this is something challenging. I have no idea what to do this. But with, going back to that resourcefulness, knowing who to talk to help you, you know, create something that meets your standards and that speaks for you, the idea that you want to build for the business. And of course, a little bit of ChatGPT doesn't hurt. Uh, but just kind of taking it one day at a time and solving each problem that comes to you with keeping that long-term vision in mind.
Thanks for sharing. And to something you mentioned earlier, you did answer my question because, and to also slightly paraphrase something you mentioned earlier, every individual, every founder has a unique journey that's their own. And so,
Yeah,
by that token, what brings one founder joy and what brings one founder challenge, that is uniquely theirs and that is of value. So, appreciate your
yeah,
perspective.
thank
How can
you.
people find you and how can people support your work?
Yeah. So I can share these links with you, and maybe you can, add them wherever the podcast is posted. But you can go to our website. It's divergent.com. That's DAIVURJNT.com. It's essentially the phonetic spelling of the word divergent. That's where that name comes from. So you can follow our website. Something that would be very helpful would be if you're someone that the problem statement resonates with you, we would love if you join our testing group, and you will be able to find that on the website. And if you're just curious and want to stay up to date on what we're doing, you can sign up for our newsletter, or you can follow us on either Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram, and just stay up to date on what we're doing.
Cool. Thanks for sharing, Lena. And yes, those links, the material you've shared is in the show notes, and people will certainly be able to do that. Now it's time
Wonderful.
for our signature question. So can you
Yes.
please fill in the blank? I amplify.
I amplify neurodivergent voices to create tools to support, not suppress.
Wow. Well, very poignant, very um, amazing, and well said. So, again, thank you so much, Lena, for sharing your journey and insights with us. It was so cool to hear more about what you do, your story, and also how you are innovating and making an amazing impact with Divergent. And I just want to pause and reflect on this conversation and just celebrate you for being an incredible founder and leader for
Thank you.
underrepresented individuals. So something that really stood out from what you shared. So first of all, I know like a lot of founders, they will go ahead and say, I face this problem. I'm then going to go ahead and solve it. What I really love about what you've shared, and you talked about this multiple times, was you bring lived empathy, you bring a participative approach, and then that informs the innovation in a space where there's extremely high need and where there's a lot of impact. I also love that as you talked about the simultaneous effects of individual empowerment, but also collective empowerment. I think that's a really
Yes.
unique angle that many founders, like the best founders, I think, bring, and I applaud you in that. And also,
Thank you.
something that a thread that I have heard in this conversation is the element of systems level impact. It has been
Yeah.
shown, like there are numerous different case studies in history where innovations around disability tech more broadly, around accommodations for the neurodivergent community, that really informs a lot of broader innovation. And any innovation does produce systemic impact. So again, like the best founders, they
Yeah.
do see like what they're doing as a seed offering that then blossoms into broad impact. And so I applaud your vision and your ability to articulate and showcase that amazingness that I see in this conversation. So thank you
Thank you
for
so much.
that, and thank you very much for an amazing episode.
Yeah, I appreciate all the kind words, and yeah, I appreciate the support, and hopefully, by being able to reach more people through your podcast and maybe other avenues, we'll be able to make that come true. So thank you for being a part of this journey and helping amplify my voice.
You're most welcome. Again, I look forward to staying in touch, Lena. And again, thanks so much for a fantastic episode. But I'd like to
Thank you.
say goodbye for now.
Bye. Thank you.
To our listeners, thanks for tuning in to this episode of Founders Amplified. I hope you're feeling as inspired as I am. If you'd like to learn more about our guest and support them, check out the show notes for their details. If you enjoyed this episode, please give us a rating, share it with someone you know, and follow us for more inspiring episodes like this one. If you're a founder who is driving innovation and impact in any industry or sector anywhere in the world and would like to be a guest, we'd love to hear from you. Check out the show notes for more information. And finally, remember that you, yes, you, have the power to amplify the voices around you. Whether you're a colleague, family member, friend, funder, mentor, or just another fellow human, your support matters. So I invite you to celebrate and uplift the underrepresented innovators in your life who are driving innovation and impact. Let's create a better future for everyone, together. Until next time, stay curious, stay bold, and keep amplifying.